Hello everyone. Recently, one of our Facebook followers, an avid Planet X observer, described their difficulty in convincing friends and family that something is appearing in the sky, that is on a trajectory that will bring it very close to the Earth. Their concern was primarily centered around the belief that as time passes and nothing happens, that the claims of an apocalyptic event will fall by the wayside, as such claims, at least on the surface, will prove to be outlandish and unrealistic by the people that this individual is earnestly trying to convince. In an effort to provide a bit of assistance to this individual, I began listing reasons why this planet or system of planets exists, and I've come up with a series of verifiable and realistic reasons for its existence that you, as an observer of the sky, can share with your neighbors and family. Regardless of the extent of their knowledge or their lack thereof, this can be a resourceful list that can be presented without being labeled as a crackpot. After publishing more than 70 videos on this subject, I thought that maybe it would be appropriate to provide my reasons why Nibiru, Planet X, is real, and how NASA has become an unwilling accomplice in verifying its existence. I'll start with the first one that comes to mind, and probably the most compelling argument for the existence of Planet X. You have heard me talk about this before, but for the sake of those who may be novice or inexperienced regarding this subject, let's be mindful of what has already been proven to be true. NASA announced to the world in 1983 that Planet X was on the fringes of our solar system. They said it was virtually knocking at our door. The story was covered on the front page of the Washington Post and the New York Times, two of the most prestigious newspapers in the world. Soon afterwards, then-President Ronald Reagan made the declaration part of the United States national security mandate, which in political terms means he made it illegal for astronomers, scientists, government agencies, and institutions of learning from speaking publicly about this discovery. He forced this mandate because he was convinced that the public would panic if they understood that a large planetary body was entering our solar system that had the potential to cause global cataclysms on an epic scale. He convinced other nations to follow suit, and it then became top secret information, where only bits and pieces were allowed to leak out to the public. There are many stories from ancient civilizations the world over that describe a large planetary body that returns to our solar system periodically, causing destruction in the form of superfloods, earthquakes, and volcanic activity. If you take the writings of the Sumerian world, considered the cradle of civilization, and compared them to the stories spoken by the Aborigines of Australia and the teachings of Holy Scripture with respect to wormwood, you will discover that each of these stories has a similarity that cannot be considered a coincidence. And here's why. The Sumerians were the people of Babylonia who actually named this planet Nibiru, or Planet of the Crossing, and did this in their own language. One of the reasons why this is so convincing is that the Sumerians actually discovered Pluto and included it in their model of our solar system, which is in direct contradiction to the fact that our own astronomers didn't announce the discovery of Pluto until 1930. The other reason this is so convincing is that many of these civilizations have no correlation with one another, and their writings were from different time periods. And so common sense would tell you that their stories originated independently from one another. If you doubt this, then I would recommend that you read Zacharias Sitchin's books on Earth Chronicles. Now, for someone who has been labeled as a fraud or imposter by those who know absolutely nothing about this man's character, his books have sold tens of millions of copies worldwide and have been translated into more than 25 languages. This is quite an accomplishment for someone who some folks believe is a crackpot. If you have done any research, you may know why public and private astronomers alike are searching the sky for the elusive planet. In 1894, Percival Lowell, a wealthy American businessman, financed the building of the Lowell Observatory in Flagstaff, Arizona. Part of the Lowell Observatory's original mandate was to specifically look for the mysterious planet, thus establishing profound proof that America knew of its existence over 100 years ago. They searched the skies for over 30 years and thought they had found it in 1930, but it turned out to be what we call Pluto, and determined it wasn't large enough to be Planet X. This compelling piece of evidence is not widely known or talked about, but shows that certain groups within American society knew of this planet's existence and its potential for devastation. Although rarely talked about, the phenomenon of an increase in the Earth's wobble observed by the public worldwide is included in the top 5 reasons for its numbers of observations made by the public. Here's an important observation that has been reported by farmers around the world, who are consistently viewing the sky as part of their livelihood as the world's food producers. Since the year 2005, they have been noticing how the sun and the moon have been rising and setting in abnormal positions. Now, there can be no mistake about this, since their observations have been corroborated by the Inuit elders, the Eskimo civilization of the Arctic frontier. This is what they told the world just a few short years ago about the Earth wobble and the changes to our sky. So here's what we know about the movement of Nibiru Planet X. It is an unnatural orbit. It does not reside on the galactic plane where all other normal planets reside. It enters our solar system from the galactic south. That is exactly why this system can be seen more easily from the southern hemisphere. And this is why large astronomical observatories have been built in this part of the world. There is sufficient evidence of an abnormal Earth wobble. They include unusual changes in the jet stream resulting in extreme weather-related events, an increase in tectonic stress, an increase in volcanic eruptions, and the melting of the polar ice caps, which have been thoroughly documented by leading scientists and geologists. Irrefutable photos and videos of second sun sightings the world over is another evidential link that cannot be ignored. Some will say every one of these images are indicative of lens flares, unless they can be proven without a shadow of a doubt. Yes, of course, we live in a digital age of computer graphics and technology. Some can be easily faked or misidentified as lens flares or sundogs, dust smudges, or some natural phenomenon. But many are not, and those that are not fake are usually the ones that are subsequently removed. Why would you censor them if they were in fact fakes? The censorship of Planet X information is very compelling. But if something is real and is then deleted, it can no longer be used as evidence because it will be inaccessible to the public. In the past, I have had to delete a number of profound links and videos from articles published on my media news sites because they had been removed from the internet for reasons that cannot be explained. One of the most compelling reasons for the existence of Planet X has to do with the so-called secret preparations that the world's governments have been conducting since the mid to late 1970s. I talked in length about this in my previous video, which coincidentally sparked a considerable amount of interest across social media and in the channel comments section of the video description. The preparations that are ongoing include, but are not necessarily limited to, underground sanctuaries and military installations. Stockpiling of supplies, which include food, water, seeds, weapons, ammunition, gasoline, and other pertinent necessities for survival. FEMA has constructed ready-made camps in various locations in the United States, away from coastlines. The camps are sitting there empty, but why exactly were they built? For what purpose? In China, they have constructed ghost cities within their vast interior, well away from coastal areas, populated by rural residents at the insistence of the Chinese military. The construction of camps can be interpreted as meaning one thing. They are anticipating the destruction or the elimination of large populations of their own citizens. One can determine that its purpose is to keep the impending cataclysms a secret for as long as possible. Unexplainable phenomena should be enough to convince even the most die-hard naysayer that our planet is changing exponentially. Since the beginning of the millennium, leading up to the present time, there has been a considerable increase in all of the events shown here. All of these events have one common denominator, the increase in the Earth's wobble, which can only be caused by another large magnetic influence in our solar system. But remember this one important reality. These events can be easily explained away and censored by the mainstream media and the powerful elite. The concerns of the public can be quickly quelled just by saying that these are natural events or events caused by human negligence. This then allows those in power to keep the public second-guessing, keeping them from connecting the dots and seeing the bigger picture. This is where you, as a sky watcher, should use common sense and draw your own conclusions that not all of these events can be just a coincidence. One of the most compelling reasons to show that the powers that be are frantically attempting to limit public perception of a potential global cataclysm is the misrepresentation or the underreporting of large earthquakes and volcanic eruptions on a global scale. In 2003, the United States Geological Society lowered the earthquake rating system by 1 point, thus allowing them to convince the public that large earthquakes were not on the rise. This shows the USGS duplicity in the matter, and people may have noticed that almost every major earthquake in the last 10 years is immediately downgraded by this institution. This certainly shows a pattern of deceit if you follow this with any sense of concern. Volcanic eruptions are more difficult to determine, but here is something quite striking. It is estimated that there are more than 3 million fissures, volcanoes, and magma flows that litter the ocean floors worldwide, with around 3,000 on the surface. One major volcanic eruption can pour more carbon dioxide and other poisonous gas and pollution into our atmosphere in one day than all of the man-made pollution we have released into the atmosphere in the last 100 years. Consider how this would affect the environment when multiple volcanoes are erupting worldwide at the same time, and you have a recipe for disaster that could well lead to a mass extinction level event. Here is something very interesting. Many believe the comet Elenin was so named as a warning to global elitists that Nibiru had arrived in our solar system. It's believed to be an acronym for Extinction Level Event. Nibiru is near. Doomsday prophecy and channeled end-time scenarios should not be overlooked when it comes to the existence of Planet X, since much of this information comes from Scripture, which millions of people accept as the accurate description of our history and the Word of God. When we consider that the Ten Commandments and many other stories in Scripture and other texts, such as the Kabbalah, are channeled information from a higher power or source, then how can we dismiss New Age channeling out of hand? You can't believe in one form of channeling and then dismiss another simply because it wasn't included in the Bible or came afterwards. There are books about past life regressions, channeled information, and alien messages that indicate our Earth has undergone past polar shifts. Noah and the Ark is a confirmation that gives validity to this story. Are Hollywood depictions of doomsday scenarios, such as the movie Melancholia, a mere coincidence or a form of end times prophecy? Could the millions of sightings of UFOs all over the world be a warning to humanity that alien life is here for a purpose that goes beyond mere curiosity? There is an eerie similarity in scope and description in the vast amount of research about aliens and UFOs, and the channeled information from such clairvoyants and seers, such as Nostradamus and Edgar Cayce. This reason I have saved for last: the overwhelming so-called scientific evidence that polar shifts have happened in the Earth's past. From a geological standpoint, the evidence is certainly overwhelming and has been confirmed many times over, even though it has not been widely recognized in the public perspective, even though dozens of research papers and studies show this to be true. What is suspect in their findings is the reason given for these past shifts, which has nothing to do with a rogue planet or a system of planets. Here is something I want you to know when you consider each of these findings by leading scientists. Many of them are paid and supported by government grants to publish conclusions on what the government wants you to know. Therefore, the evidence is shaped to fit the theory or the idea. The same could be said of astronomers. Many of them either work for NASA or for agencies tied to government research institutions. Because of this, they can be held to the national security mandate that was implemented by President Reagan in the early 1980s. So think about that the next time you ask why so many astronomers haven't said anything about Planet X. If your livelihood is linked to an agency that wants information kept from the public, you will lie, you will falsify documents, and you will create new theories to back their agenda. I could list more reasons for the existence of Planet X, as it is all too real for me, but I want you to do some of your own research. Search the internet. Read up on book publications dating back 100 years. Or if you prefer not to read, check out the many videos and movies and documentaries on this subject. It is our best means for seeking the truth. If Planet X is an elaborate hoax designed to spread fear throughout the world, then it has to be considered as the greatest of all. I've been accused of being a fearmonger just because of what I believe in and because of my sincere desire to warn others. And that is okay. I can handle that. You see, it has to do with a more noble cause. It is a part of our spiritual orientation and development. This is the moment in our existence in which we determine whether we live to serve others or to serve ourselves. It is a matter of choice. Some of you have already seen what is coming, either through your visions and dreams of its reality, or through your diligent observations of the sky. Through your own intuition coupled with spiritual guidance, you have come to know and understand these things. Not all of us are blessed to see its existence in its physical state. And yet, because of humanity's propensity not to believe anything that they cannot see with their own eyes, then many will have a difficult time in believing what the rest of us know to be true. Even so, we shouldn't stop recognizing how all of this is affecting the earth. Many are under the false assumption that something this big or this important just couldn't be kept from the public, and that out of the goodness of their hearts, the governments would inform their citizens if this were true. But the reality is they cannot inform you, and they will never inform you. How can you possibly tell 7 billion people that something is coming that the world cannot control? The global elite will seek shelter in their underground cities, but even these places will crumble by the magnitude of what is upon us. Current research and data now suggest that we are living in a time of global flooding and devastating changes thrust upon the earth by powerful forces unknown to this generation. Understanding my reasons for the existence of a Planet X or a Nemesis system may in the long run help many of you to seek the truth as to why our planet is facing perilous times. I have come to the realization that my purpose in life, irrespective of my personal accomplishments, is and has been to be of service to others in the latter days. Here is something that I know to be true. The ancient cultures and civilizations left many clues as a warning to future generations. And this is how the powers that be knew when and where to look for that planet that we call Nibiru, the planet of the crossing. It is a matter of simply connecting the dots.
What is wrong with the sun right now? If you go to the Solar and Heliospheric Observatory website, you will see that the sun is almost completely black. It looks extremely bizarre and not right at all. What is going on? This is an EIT 171 image. EIT 195. EIT 284. And EIT 304. Is it burning out before our eyes? Are massive flares about to be ejected from our fire giant? Or is this a natural occurrence? I personally have never seen it like this before, but I'm in no way an expert. I just hope NASA's scientists have an explanation. So it looks like the Mars rover Curiosity has found another strange object on the red planet. This time what appears to be an Egyptian statue on the side of a canyon. As you can see in this NASA photo, the statue is uncanny and clearly has eyes, a nose, and an elongated chin as seen in most Egyptian statues. It also has a different texture than the other rocks surrounding it, except for this rock over here that also looks sculpted. I'll place a link to the actual original photo in the description box below if you don't believe me. Let me know what you think in the comments below. First reported by UFOSightsDaily.com. The head of an alien statue has been seen in a photo taken by the Mars rover Curiosity. Let's take a look. This is insane, and I believe it is the smoking gun when it comes to proof of a lost civilization on the red planet. You can clearly see a huge eye. No slits. And what really blows me away is the mouth. It has teeth that cannot be disputed. Some will say this is pareidolia, but with those teeth, there is no way. They are square. And the eye is perfectly round with a pupil. I really don't know what else to say about it. It speaks for itself, almost literally. I'll leave the link to the original photo in the description box below. This story is flooding the internet today. A distant star with a very unusual flickering nature is stirring up a bit of a debate lately among the scientific community. Something was making the star dim drastically every few years, and astronomer Tabitha Boyajian, from Yale University, wasn't sure what it was. Some believe this flickering is being caused by an alien structure that surrounds the star. To fellow astronomer Jason Wright, a Penn State University researcher, it looked like the kind of star he and his colleagues had been waiting for. If none of the ordinary reasons for the star's flux quite seemed to fit, perhaps an extraordinary one was in order. Extraterrestrials. Or, to be more specific, something built by aliens, a swarm of megastructures, as he told The Atlantic, likely outfitted with solar panels to collect energy from the star. Both Boyajian and Wright believe the possibility of alien megastructures around the star is very, very remote. It's worthy of hypothesis, Wright told Slate, but we should also approach it skeptically. So, is this what we've all been waiting for? Finding out that there is a highly evolved alien race that have built a structure so big it surrounds an entire planet? Or is it something natural? Reported by the Inquisitor yesterday and apparently aired on national Chinese news on October 7th, an alien city was filmed over the city of Foshan in China. Thousands of witnesses stared at this bizarre phenomenon, which some described as ghostly as it appeared to be floating above the clouds. UFO Sightings Hotspot reported that the event lasted for only a few minutes before it disappeared. There were other reports that a few days later, people in parts of the province of Jiangxi also reported sighting a ghostly alien city in the sky. Some are calling this a mirage, while others claim it to be the work of Project Blue Beam. Could it really be an alien city poking through from another dimension? Or is it the government testing out their high-tech projection system? As always, you decide. Venera 13, meaning Venus 13, was a probe in the Soviet Venera program for the exploration of Venus. Venera 13 and 14 were identical spacecraft built to take advantage of the 1981 Venus launch opportunity and launched 5 days apart. Venera 13 on October 30, 1981, and Venera 14 on November 4. After launch and a 4-month cruise to Venus, the descent vehicle separated from the cruise stage and plunged into the Venusian atmosphere on March 1, 1982. After entering the atmosphere, a parachute was deployed. At an altitude of about 50 kilometers, the parachute was released and simple air braking was used the rest of the way to the surface. Venera 13 landed 950 kilometers northeast of Venera 14, just east of the eastern extension of an elevated region known as Phoebe Regio. The lander had cameras to take pictures of the ground and spring-loaded arms to measure the compressibility of the soil. The quartz camera windows were covered by lens caps which popped off after descent. These photos were top secret then, but now have been declassified. Leonid Kazanfo-Malatai, of the Space Research Institute of Russia's Academy of Sciences, a contributor to the Venera mission, suggests signs of life in the Venera images. Leonid said that in the image we can see a scorpion-shaped life form. Take a look. To me it looks out of place. It also looks like how we see microorganisms through a microscope. Leonid believes that in the images, a scorpion-shaped creature, a disc, and a black flap are visible moving in front of the onboard camera of the Venera 13. According to reports from a Russian news agency, Leonid explained in an article of the Russian journal Solar System Research magazine, they all emerge, fluctuate, and disappear. What if we forget about the current theories about the non-existence of life on Venus? He added, let's boldly suggest that the object's morphological features would allow us to say that they are living. American counterparts seem to firmly disagree with Kazanfo-Malatai, which of course they would. Why spill the beans about everything, right? Ted Strike, who is a photo analyst at NASA, says it is more likely that the disk Leonid is talking about could have come from the spacecraft. So do you think this is evidence of life? Or parts of the spacecraft itself? You decide. Reported to the MUFON database on October 11th, a UFO was seen flying past a flag while on a cutaway shot during a live cricket game held in Green Park Stadium in India. It appears to be traveling quite fast. The uploader of the video said they thought it looked as if it were traveling at the speed of light. Let's take a look. Let's see it in slow motion while zoomed in. It does not appear to be a bird or a drone. The shape is very much like a disc, and it is without a doubt casting light from itself, indicating it is made of some sort of metal. This is truly remarkable footage here, and I leave it up to you guys to decide what you think it is.
Something unexpected is happening on the Sun, NASA has warned. This year was supposed to be the year of solar maximum, the peak of the 11-year sunspot cycle. But as this image reveals, solar activity is relatively low. Sunspot numbers are well below their values from 2011, and strong solar flares have been infrequent, the space agency says. The image above shows the Earth-facing surface of the Sun on February 28, 2013, as observed by the Helioseismic and Magnetic Imager (ME) on NASA's Solar Dynamics Observatory. It observed just a few small sunspots on an otherwise clean face, which is usually riddled with many spots during peak solar activity. Experts have been baffled by the apparent lack of activity, with many wondering if NASA simply got it wrong. However, solar physicist Dean Pesnell of NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center believes he has a different explanation. This is solar maximum, he says. But it looks different from what we expected because it is double-peaked. The last two solar maxima, around 1989 and 2001, had not one but two peaks. Solar activity went up, dipped, then rose again, performing a mini-cycle that lasted about 2 years, he said. The same thing could be happening now, as sunspot counts jumped in 2011 and dipped in 2012, he believes. Pesnell expects them to rebound in 2013. I am comfortable in saying that another peak will happen in 2013 and possibly last into 2014. He spotted a similarity between solar cycle 24 and solar cycle 14, which had a double peak during the first decade of the 20th century. If the two cycles are twins, it would mean one peak in late 2013 and another in 2015. Single quote.
What's up, folks? Pies and Cakes, trying to give you the best shot I possibly can. That's a fucking monster. Alright, that's a monster. And it sucks because I got pulled off the shot. I was up there in the background earlier. This is a monster today, folks. This is a monster, man. Alright? Let's just bring that down. That is a Farfanugan monster of red. Okay? Like I said, I was up there trying to get a shot. I didn't think I was getting all that much. So, my boss called me right in the middle. Oh, I need you to come down to work. And I'm like, yeah. So, Pies and Cakes trying to bring you some crazy red sky. And you know what's in that red sky, folks, right? Yeah, you damn right we know what's in that red sky, Nibiru. Let me tell you, I've been watching the sky for almost 50 years, okay? And not only that, I'm out here twice a day for the most part for the last 3 months. 3 months. 3 months at an hour and a half, 2 hours a day, a little bit more. Yeah, I put some time in standing outside in the cold, all right? But I wanted to bring you something that was just so absolutely crazy. And like I said, if I was up there, I'd get even better shot than this. But I'm grateful for anything, because Pies and Cakes is getting a little stressed out. You know what I mean? This stuff takes a toll on you when you're out here all the time. It really does, because you start making plans around your stuff to get your shot. You really do. So I just want to bring you that cauldron of red. A cauldron of red, folks. You know what I'm saying? That's ballistically red. And I love you, and Jesus loves you. And I need to go home and smoke a fatty before I get any more stressed out than I already am. So thanks for watching my Nibiru sunset, straight outside of Boston, live shot, bringing it to you, putting it on the table. Holla! Mr. Mackey, that's some dope-ass shit right there, okay? Okay, pass me that joint, Bob. You know I will, Mr. Mackey. Okay, then, pass it. All right, folks, I just want to bring you that freaking ballistic. And like I said, you can see the black clouds and then smash in the face red. So thanks for joining me. Peace out. Nibiru sunset. What is today? Tuesday? And damn skippy it is, folks. Thanks for joining me. Oh my God.
Sitting west. Yeah, it's right there.
Hi, this is Abhigyan. I'm going to show you 5 visible planets. Now that is February 2016 in the sky. And if you look on the eastern sky where you have a most light coming, that means, you know, that's where we're gonna have a sunrise in probably 35 to 40 minutes. So as you can see, a little bit sunlight is coming from this eastern sky, and rest of the zenith is, you know, a little dark. So that's how you identify the eastern sky. And right on eastern sky, the only visible and very brightest star is Venus. That's the Venus. And you see little left and below, that's Mercury. That's Mercury, and that's Venus. And if you see little right, you can spot 2 stars together. There will be 2 stars together. You cannot miss it. 2 stars together. So one on the top is Saturn, and one below, that's Antares. And sometimes they call Jyeshtha Nakshatra in Hindu calendar. And then you'll go a little right on it from here, little right on little above. There's one very little orange star. That's Mars. It's gonna be little yellow and less shiny than Saturn. And then you go further right, in about the same circle. You cannot miss, that's Jupiter. That's Jupiter star. You cannot miss it. It's second most bright star in the sky after Venus. So here we have 5 planets. That's about 6:30 a.m. on February 8th today in Jacksonville, Florida. So this is one, which is Jupiter, and here that's Mars. Then we have 2 here, and then this is our Venus. Thanks for watching.
If you're willing to get up early between January 20th and February 20th, you do get up early all the time, Jill, for work. But for those of us who don't, you're in for a special treat if you do. It's called a planetary spectacle of all 5 of the so-called bright planets. They will be visible to the human eye. That includes Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. You'll also be able to see the stars Picurus and Antares.
So joining us now to talk about the Parade of Planets is Dr. Derek Pitts, Planetarium Director for the Franklin Institute of Technology. Thank you so much for joining us. So when is this happening? When will we be able to see all 5 of these planets simultaneously?
You'll be able to watch these 5 planets in the morning in the pre-dawn sky around 6:15 to about 6:40 or so. For the next month, you'll have this great opportunity in which you can go outside on a day when the sky is clear and catch view of these planets. No binoculars necessary. Look over to the eastern sky and around to the south, and through that sort of panoramic view, you'll be able to catch all 5 of these planets.
And so the question, I think, for a lot of people who don't know a whole lot about astronomy is that you go up to the roof of your house or your apartment here in New York City and you look up in the sky and you see tons of stars. What are the biggest, I mean, clearly the brightness will be some signifier, but I think a lot of people sometimes go up there and they look around and they go, I can't tell what's what.
Well, Vlad, I have a special trick for that. It's really, really simple. And it goes like this. Stars twinkle, but planets don't. So if you're looking toward that portion of the sky, eastern, southeastern, around to the south, you will be able to tell the difference between the stars and the planets because the planets don't twinkle. Also, the brightest objects you'll see in the morning sky will be the planets, especially Venus. Venus is the one that's really bright, clear white, down lower to the horizon, a little bit further over toward the east. And that one will stand out brilliantly. You can't miss it. So that'll be your first clue as to what the planets look like, bright but no twinkle.
So how often does something like this happen?
Well, it actually happens every decade or so. The last time this occurred was in 2005. There will be some continued planet gathering going forward over the next several years. So you'll be able to see something similar to this again next year, but the planets won't be up as high in the sky, so it'll be more difficult to see some of the other ones. This time around, we have Venus down low on the eastern side. A little bit higher, we have the planet Saturn. A little bit higher up in the sky around toward the south, we have the planet Mars. And then right up at the top in the south, we have the planet Jupiter. And all 4 of these are really easy to see. Now, Mercury is the 5th planet that's coming onto the scene later this month and early next month. And you know, you can add one other thing to this that will help make all the viewing spectacular. And that is right at the last week of this month, early next month, we'll have the last phases and a thin crescent moon sliding past each of the planets as the moon makes its way around to its beginning of its phasing again.
Derek, will we be able to see, if we're looking up at Saturn, will we be able to see the rings even faintly, or will that be just too much of a stretch?
Yeah, that's a great question, Vlad, because that's really the hallmark of that planet are the rings, and of course of Jupiter, its main bright moons are the hallmark for that planet. Now, these planets are all visible naked eye. You can see it without any problem at all. You don't need binoculars. But if you add binoculars, you'll be able to pick up the 4 large moons of Jupiter without any difficulty. They'll look like little tiny stars arranged in a line around the planet. But if you have a small telescope, and you remember that gift you got for the holiday season, Vlad? Somebody gave you a telescope and you haven't taken it out to use it yet? It's off in a closet someplace. Well,
you probably used it.
I probably, yeah.
You're going to get that out, and you're going to use that to take a look at Saturn, because you will be able to see the rings of Saturn with very, very low power in any kind of telescope. It doesn't have to be a big telescope. A small telescope will work out just fine. And even if you have something like a bird spotting scope hanging around that you use for birding, that will work to show you the rings of Saturn as well.
But Dr. Pitts, you're saying for somebody like me, who tends to miss all this stuff and never knows what to look at.
I always thought you had your head in the clouds, Jill.
It's quite true. So I'll be able, someone like me will be able to enjoy this as well.
Well, I'm going to make it even easier for you, Jill. Here's what we're going to do. Is if you start at 6:15, the sky is still dark enough that the planets are there among the stars. But as we get closer to sunrise, say around 6:30 or 6:40 in the morning, what's happening is that the stars have now all faded away because the skies become too bright. But the planets will still be there. So if you wait just a little bit later, between 6:30 and 6:45, what will happen is the stars will fade and the planets will stand out on their own. And then that way, just for you, Jill, you'll be able to identify them in that line from Venus all the way up to Jupiter.
All right, well, I'll be watching.
Yeah,
Great.
It's going to be cool. We're going to be up there, definitely.
Okay, good.
Thank you so much, Derek.
Sure.
As usual, we appreciate the discussion.
Thank you.
All right.